What's going on, everybody? Now that I have played every character in the game and made gear sets for every single one, I am going to be updating my tier list, and there are some changes. Here, I am not only going to be ranking the character based on the comparison to other characters, I'm also going to be giving you what I think is the best build for that specific character. A couple of disclaimers before I get started. As always, there are no bad characters. This game is very, very balanced, and you can win with anybody. Honestly, you just have to build the gear of what feels right on your team, and you can even use your favorite characters. You can use an all Yoshi team. Ultimately, it's going to come down to who is the better player. But there are, of course, some characters that are going to increase your chance of winning if you play them because they are just so dominant on the field. And speaking of characters that are going to dominate the field, Mario is once again in the S tier. Previously, I put him down in the A tier because I didn't think he was going to be as good as Rosalina. But now that I've played him a little bit, he is definitely exactly the same as Rosalina and deserving of this high tier role. This is the build I recommend for Mario: the Trick Helmet, the Bushido Bracers, the Cannon Plate, and the Cannon Boots to get the stats that you see there on the screen. The way I see it, when you have a dedicated striker like Mario or Rosalina, your job is to score goals. You don't need passing, you don't need speed, you don't need strength. They're just going to be in position sometimes, and you need them to rip the shots whenever they get the ball. So all the points I can muster will go into shooting and technique to make a sort of fair balance between them. Next, we're talking about Luigi, Mario's brother. Unfortunately, does not cut it in the S tier, but is still a very good character. He will be dropping down below other characters in the A tier, but he is still very good. Luigi has a good potential of being an alternative captain because he is very deadly from shooting from far range, especially if you maximize his technique. Luigi also has a lot more utility than Mario, having a little bit more speed and a little bit more passing, so that he is able to set up plays so he's not forced to only one role that Mario plays. This is the build that I recommend for Luigi. He has 23 technique, which is almost max, but I didn't want to go all the way to 25 because his shooting needs a little bit of help as well. So his shooting goes to 13, his technique goes to 23, and the rest of his stats are pretty low. This build uses the Trick Helmet, the Bushido Bracers, the Cannon Plate, and the Cannon Boots. Now we will be talking about Bowser, who I definitely underestimated before I was playing him a lot, but his large hitbox and great ability to tackle other players definitely makes him an A tier character and better than Luigi. Some people have argued that Bowser is an even better defensive player than Waluigi, just because he has shooting potential where Waluigi is kinda dinky. Running a Bowser on a team is very important in my opinion because having a character who is very tall and very large makes it so that you can actually stop a lot of lob pass goals. Think about how many times you have been on the right character and went to tackle an opponent before they shot only to have them jump over you. Since Bowser is so tall and large, he's able to still hit opponents even if they're in mid-air, which someone like Toad or Wario just can't do. Some people may be mad at me for this, but honestly, I think that the Speed Bowser build is the best build for Bowser because, like I said, he is much better as a defensive character that has some shooting potential than he is as a giant character who can only score. This build uses the Turbo Helmet, the Muscle Gauntlets, the Turbo Pad, and the Bushido Sandals. Next, we're going to be talking about Princess Peach. Princess Peach is going to also be in the A tier above Bowser even. Since Peach has such incredible speed and technique, she is a very versatile player. She can be maxed out on technique and take a lot of shots, or she can be maxed out on speed and just be a menace on defense. In my gear build video, I even gave Peach some strength to make her more of a defensive monster, and it worked. She's a very, very good defensive player who is able to get to 20 speed and 16 strength, which is amazing. As for the best build of Peach, it is very difficult to decide, but this is what I think most people are going to like, which is a very high speed, very high technique character. This is going to make Peach both good on offense and defense, meaning she can chase down a lot of loose balls, as well as score from a lot of different places on the field, including fairly far out. This build uses the Trick Helmet, the Bushido Bracers, the Turbo Pad, and the Bushido Sandals. I also know some people like running with full speed Peach, and this is a very good build as well. This is just the one from a gear build video that I like the most. Up next, we got Rosalina. No big deal. Goes in S tier with Mario. one of these characters on your team is an absolute necessity in the meta, because otherwise you are just going to be at a disadvantage to people who are running Rosalina or both Rosalina and Mario, who are going to be able to score from so many different places on the field and take cheesy shots, whereas you're going to have to work a lot harder. These characters are the definition of work smarter, not harder, or just make it as easy as you can, I guess. I don't know. I don't like how these characters are so overpowered when it comes to shooting, but they are, and that's the meta we're going to have to deal with. Now we've got Toad, and Toad is in a very interesting spot. He is going to go right after Bowser, and definitely better than Luigi. Toad is by far the best support character in the game. There's no other character that I'm perfectly okay with not being able to score goals, because Toad being so fast and having so much passing just makes him a monster on offense. There are a ton of builds to use for Toad, and this is the one that I like the most. I think he should be as speedy as possible while also providing utility to his team. So this build uses the Turbo Helmet, the Chain Gauntlets, the Chain Plate, and the Bushido Sandals. Oftentimes, I'll even run 2 or 3 Toads on my team that are all running this build, and it's perfectly fine because they can just feed the ball to the shooter and everything is a-okay. Alright, it's time for Yoshi. Yoshi is a very, very difficult character to rank. I think he's somewhere around the B or A tier, but I'm going to be generous to Yoshi because I think it's a lot of fun to run an all Yoshi team. So, Yoshi is going to go in A tier behind Luigi. But Yoshi having high shooting and passing means that he can pass to himself and then shoot for a very high percentage of goals. I know Yoshi is a very good shooter, but I also think he only works well if there's another Yoshi on the team, which I think is very weird because there's, Toad doesn't really work that way. But I think that Yoshi needs another Yoshi to be able to feed him the ball, or at least more characters who can do that. Yoshi's still a very good shooter. He has a small hitbox. He has competitive shooting stat with Rosalina and Mario, so he's still very good from a lot of parts in the field. It's just that he's not as good as Mario and Rosalina. This build of Yoshi focuses on giving him a little bit more speed while also maximizing his shooting potential, so it uses the Cannon Visor, the Turbo Gloves, the Turbo Pad, and the Cannon Boots. Now it's time to round out the B tier. Donkey Kong is going to be going down here just because it's so hard to rank where he goes. As I said in my gear build video, he is so in between being offensive and being defensive that he doesn't do a good job of doing either. You can run him with a lot of speed and strength, but at that point you might as well have Waluigi, or you can run him with a lot of shooting, which in case you might as well run Bowser. It will use the Bushido Helmet, the Turbo Gloves, the Bushido Armor, and the Muscle Boots. Okay, Wario is the worst character in the game. I'm going to say it. He just does not fit a role anywhere. If you are going to run someone who is speedy and strength, you might as well run Speed Bowser or Waluigi, who have way better tackles and hitboxes. Wario is just so short and stubby that he doesn't hit anyone when he's trying to actually stop shots. Also, his shooting is worse than Bowser's, so there's no point in running him over Bowser in that regard. His passing is a little bit better, but that doesn't really matter because his job is not to pass. He doesn't really have a job. He just doesn't fit a role anywhere. That being said, I do have to pick some best build for Wario, and this is the one that I'm going to go with, which is his all-around build. Wario is pretty much the only character that can get away with being an all-around character who's also strong. This build uses the Cannon Visor, the Turbo Gloves, the Bushido Armor, and the Bushido Sandals. And lastly, we got to talk about Waluigi, who is not quite an S tier character, but is still almost going to make it on every team because of his defensive stats. Waluigi is absolutely an S tier character if you are playing 2v2s, because if you have another person who is able to focus on defense, then you want him playing Waluigi. There's no other character who can do that job. In 1v1s, I think Waluigi kind of falls off a little bit, probably going to be worse than Peach and Bowser, just because you're not going to be controlling Waluigi all the time, so you're going to be dependent on all of your characters, not just the one who's good at defense. But I want to judge him based on his true potential, so it's going to be in the A tier, very top of A tier, almost an S tier. The build I want you to use on Waluigi is the Turbo Helmet, the Muscle Gauntlets, the Bushido Armor, and the Bushido Sandals. Alright, here are my final thoughts on the tier list. S tier means that these are must picks on your team. If you do not have either of these characters, you are going to be at a disadvantage. So I think it's perfectly fine to run one of these two. It just depends on what your personal preference is. Mario has more speed, Rosalina has more strength. Then when we talk about the A tier, these are very good characters that are probably going to fit on every team. So you can choose from these first. Then in the B tier, these are going to be very niche picks that honestly I would only pick if you like the characters because other characters are going to do their job better. Donkey Kong is still good. He can fit on a team if you need a slow strength passer who just wants to sit in the backfield all game. And Wario is just Wario. All of my complaints can be said very explicitly in my Wario gear build video, so I'm not going to say this now, but he is the only character that I am confident to say is the worst in the game. Thank you everybody for watching the video. This tier list is probably not going to change for a while for me, unless something crazy happens in the competitive scene, so I'll keep you up to date with that. I have opened up my Strikers Club, and I'll be playing in the next season with you all. The club is now full from yesterday's video, so I thank you all for that. I was not expecting it to fill up so fast. And if you would like to still play with other like-minded people, my Discord is still open, and the link is in the description down below. Thank you guys for watching, and have a nice day.